Sell the team? It's funny. I work at a network that has the NFC, and we put Tom Brady on all these big Cowboy games. Anybody watch the Niners-Rams game this weekend? It was like 70% Niner fans. The Niners, not the Cowboys, travel better than any NFL franchise. Dallas fans, they pop up, but they're not as proud, and they don't travel like the Niners. Why? Well, because they don't win big road games. What's the point? If you went to your in-laws time and time again and came back driving home in a bad mood, would you go to your in-laws as much? Last 10 big road games for the Cowboys against playoff teams, they're 2-8. Save your money. Really. By halftime, you'll be getting blown out by Buffalo or Green Bay or somebody. But to me, Kansas City and San Francisco reward their fans in January. So I've said this before. I think Kansas City is America's team right now. I mean, Taylor Swift could have dated anybody. You really think it was going to be somebody on the Jags? It's Travis Kelce, number 2 player on the number 1 team in the world. So, I look at Dallas, and yes, there are still Cowboy fans on the road. But has anybody else noticed in the last several years that in Dallas, where they sell out high school football games, where they have the number 1 college football team in the country, the biggest football brand, the Dallas Cowboys, you're seeing 25% of that stadium filled with Saints fans and Packer fans and Lions fans. Here's Stephen Jones talking about it.
Obviously, we'd prefer to have everybody sitting in that seat a Cowboys fan, but we're certainly the beneficiary of that on the road most of the time in terms of, having large percentages of Cowboy fans in opposing team stadiums. If we had our preference, honestly, no. I'd like 100% of them to be Cowboy fans, but also know that can be unrealistic.
Dallas has not won multiple playoff games in a single year in 29 years. In fact, the last time the Cowboys won more than a single playoff game, Murphy Brown was the number 1 TV show, and Hootie and the Blowfish, the number 1 band. I think that was Toy Story 1. What are they on, Toy Story 3 or 4 or 5 now? Whatever. Like, at some point, you can't keep telling me this is America's team. And what's amazing is they've done this. They've regressed with Dak and Tony Romo. Those are B++, A- quarterbacks. So it's not like they haven't had a good coach. Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl. It's not like they haven't had good quarterback play. Dak will get a handful of Hall of Fame votes, and Tony Romo was really, really good. They're both really good. Better than Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton, we saw this past weekend, and Andy Dalton won multiple division titles in a division with the Ravens and the Steelers. Like, they're good players. So it's not just, well, it's the coach. No, they've had a few of those. Well, it's the quarterback. No, they've been better than average. Like, Chicago's been bad. They can't get quarterback right. Raiders been bad. They can't get quarterback right. Cleveland's been bad. They can't get anything right. But the Cowboys have gotten a lot of the player stuff right. And you watch those home games for Dallas now. Once they're getting blown out at halftime, I mean, I never knew the Baltimore Ravens traveled much. People that are there, people you talk to are like, yeah, it's kind of a 50-50 Ravens crowd by the fourth quarter. Doesn't mean you eventually, America loves winners. The Cowboys are kind of a loser. I mean, when it comes to January and February, this isn't baseball. There's no nostalgia in football. We don't care what you did years ago. Doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. The Raiders have been to a Super Bowl. The Jags have been to a conference championship. Detroit was in one last year for the Cowboys. You're talking about America's team. America doesn't like losers. They don't like losers. In football, January and February is where winners play, and the Cowboys are never there. All right, Joel Klatt, 45 minutes from now. But they won 12 games. Nobody cares. Again, like in baseball, you can be a Hall of Famer, Mike Trout, be called the best player in the game, never win a playoff game. Forget a series. That's okay with baseball. In the NBA, I mean, Carmelo Anthony was a losing player. He can be he's a first ballot Hall of Fame player. He's beloved in the sport, never made a teammate better. That's basketball. Aesthetics, optics, stylistically, that matters in basketball. I'm good with it. I'm okay with that. There's a lot of art in basketball. Same with soccer. If Messi doesn't win the World Cup, it doesn't devalue. He's the best soccer player on the planet last 20 years, he and Ronaldo. In baseball, nobody really cares how many titles Bob Gibson or Sandy Koufax had. But in football, it's about January and February. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. I think he's more than capable. I kind of put him in the Pete Carroll thing. I think sometimes they're a bit outdated with offense and offensive coordinators and offensive line, but they're both like Hall of Fame votes. I'd have no problem Mike Tomlin, Pete Carroll getting into the Hall of Fame, but the world's changed. Football culture's changed. It's very offensive. The rules have changed. Sometimes I feel a little outdated on offense, but whatevs. But what's interesting is when you watch Mike Tomlin on this Justin Fields situation. So, by the way, Russell Wilson, and I think this is reasonable to say, there's a little maintenance with Russell. And Russell came there to be quarterback one, and now Justin Fields is on a heater. And when everybody's pressing Mike Tomlin, he's just saying, his quote yesterday is, there's no need to name Justin Fields as quarterback one. The guy's 3-0, leads his division, best he's ever played, 73% completion percentage. And Mike Tomlin's like, so what? You couldn't do that elsewhere. There are 3 organizations in America that always empower the coach. Miami with Eric Spoelstra, San Antonio with Greg Popovich, and the Steelers with Bill Cowher and now Mike Tomlin. That's it. What about Steve Kerr? Hey, Steve Kerr has to massage Kevin Durant, Draymond Green. Steve Kerr, he doesn't have total control. He has that locker room. Steph runs that organization. But what happens is Mike Tomlin doesn't have to tell the players what they want to hear. Well, Colin, LeBron left Miami. Colin, Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, he left San Antonio. Yeah, and those 2 players are now on lousy rosters. And by the way, the Heat and the Spurs have 8 titles between the 2. How's your franchise doing? The Lakers aren't sniffing a franchise championship in a long time. And by the way, Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers, they underachieve every year. I think the Spurs with Wemby going forward are going to have a great decade. And I think the Miami Heat, by the way, LeBron gave Spoelstra crap. And why did he leave? Because Spoelstra and Pat Riley were in lockstep. He's like, so what? Bye, see ya. So, and Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, you've got like a quarterback dilemma. The quarterback one, the star, is now sitting behind a kid who struggled in Pittsburgh, and Justin Fields is humming. I never thought he'd be this accurate. See the field like this. And it's like Tomlin's like, yeah, we'll figure it out when it happens. And there's nothing you can do. And, I mean, last year, think about this. The Steelers have had 3 head coaches in 55 years. The Carolina Panthers have had 3 in 48 months. It's not a coincidence. I looked it up this morning. The most head coaches last 30 years. Raiders 15, Dolphins, Browns 13, Lions 12. Do you think it's a coincidence those teams are like second-tier teams until Detroit the last 2 years? The rest of those teams, it's always a circus. You think that's a coincidence? So is Mike Tomlin my favorite coach? No, Pete Carroll wasn't at the end, or Belichick my favorite coach, because the world has changed, the culture's changed. But they're 3-0. He's always emboldened. He's always empowered. And this Pittsburgh media, give the media credit in Pittsburgh. They're not giving him a pass. They're pressing him on this every single day. And here's what he said yesterday.
What more do you need to see from Justin? Why not name him the starting quarterback?
Because there's no need. I explained to you the variables of the week. It has not changed. He's going to walk in this building with that mindset tomorrow. When Russ gets to an appropriate point of health and we have a decision to make, I'll make it and I'll announce it and I'll be really transparent about it. But until then, I don't care how many ways you guys ask me. I got no intentions of making a decision that's unnecessary at this juncture.
And he doesn't waver, and he said it 6 times, and he doesn't care, and he's 3-0, and they're going to go 4-0. And again, some of these defensive coaches can drive me nuts. Like Buffalo finally has a run game 7 years in. But I will say this, is Miami Heat, San Antonio Spurs, Pittsburgh Steelers, they're never in chaos. When they're down, it's brief. They bounce back up again, and Cleveland doesn't, and the Raiders. When's the last time the Raiders were good? Or the Browns were consistently good? Or the Dolphins were consistently good? I mean, what decade was that? There is, in a world where players make more and have more power and scrub their IG every time they get their feelings hurt, there is an argument to empower the coach. Even if he's not your favorite coach, empower the coach. Here are the Steelers once again in first place with Mike Tomlin. So I saw this headline. What do the Cowboys need to focus on to end